The space between words. Chapter 1. They were both old enough to mistake calm for safety. Rain traced narrow paths down the glass behind her. She watched him with professional patience, the kind that makes you careless. When she smiled, it was not weather that changed, but gravity. "You're late," she said. "I know." He set his folder on the table without sitting. The discussion ran long. "That's never true," she replied. "Discussions end when someone decides they do." He studied her face for permission to disagree. It was familiar in a way that bothered him. He had seen it before in seminar rooms, across committee tables, in mirrors. It was the face of someone who had already revised her opinion and was waiting for him to catch up. "You asked to see me," he said. "I came." "Yes," she said. "You did." The room was small, furnished for visiting scholars who traveled light and stayed briefly. A desk, 2 chairs, a narrow couch that looked unused by design. The lamp cast a soft, insufficient light. It made everything provisional. She removed her coat and draped it over the back of the chair. The movement was unhurried, deliberate. He noticed his hands had not stopped gripping the folder. "You can sit," she said. He did. The chair creaked in a way that felt like commentary. They listened to the rain for a moment. Not consciously. It simply filled the silence without asking anything from them. "You argued against your own footnote," she said finally. He blinked. "I did not." "You did," she said. "Page 14. You cite the counterexample, then dismiss it without addressing the implication." He smiled despite himself. "That's one way to read it." "It's the only way," she said. "Unless you meant something else." "I meant," he began, then stopped. "I meant that the counterexample is seductive but finally irrelevant." Her eyes narrowed, not unkindly. "Seductive how?" He leaned back. "You're enjoying this." "I am," she said. "That's not a crime." "It should be," he said. "In peer review." She laughed, a short sound, then caught it, as if surprised it had escaped. The laughter stayed between them, unfinished. "You're not used to being challenged," she said. "I am," he replied. "Just not this directly." "Good," she said. "Indirectness is wasted at our age." The sentence landed harder than he expected. He considered correcting her. He did not. "And yet," she continued, "you didn't answer my question." "Which one?" "How the counterexample is seductive." He looked at the window. The rain had slowed. Or perhaps his attention had shifted. "Because it flatters the reader," he said. "It suggests complexity without demanding consequence." She nodded once. "That's better." "Better than what?" "Than evasion," she said. "Which is what you were doing." He felt the familiar irritation rise, followed by something else. Interest, perhaps, or relief. "You invited me here to accuse me of intellectual laziness?" he asked. "I invited you," she said, "to see whether you were aware of it." "And am I?" She tilted her head. "Now you are." Silence returned. It felt altered, as if it had been edited. "You could have written this in a report," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "But then we wouldn't be having this conversation." "Is that the point?" She met his gaze. "Isn't it?" He noticed then how close they were sitting. Not physically. The distance between the chairs had not changed. Something else had moved. "You're enjoying this too," she said. "I don't deny it," he replied. "That's honest." "I try to be." "Only when cornered," she said. He smiled again, more carefully this time. "You're very good at this." "At what?" "At making people tell you things." She considered that. "No. I just ask questions and wait." "That's worse," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "It is." The rain resumed, faint but persistent. The sound threaded through the room like a reminder. "Why did you really ask to meet?" he said. She stood and crossed to the window. Her reflection joined the rain, layered and uncertain. When she spoke, she did not turn around. "Because," she said, "your work is about endings. And you write as if you don't believe in them." He stood as well, though he did not know why. The floor seemed unsteady. "That's a serious accusation," he said. "I know," she replied. "I wouldn't make it lightly." She turned then, and the look she gave him was no longer patient. It was intent, focused. "And?" he asked. "And," she said, "I want to know what happens when someone like you is finally forced to finish a thought." Outside, the rain pressed closer to the glass. Inside, neither of them moved. He opened his mouth to answer. The words did not come. He closed his mouth again. The pause felt earned. "You're asking for a confession," he said. "I'm asking for clarity," she replied. "Confessions are decorative. That's uncharitable." "It's accurate." He moved back to the chair, but did not sit. Standing gave him a sense of leverage he did not actually possess. She noticed, and the faintest smile returned. "You're thinking," she said. "I always am." "No," she said. "You're deciding how much to reveal." He exhaled. "You don't waste time." "I've wasted enough," she replied. "That's the privilege of arriving late." He glanced at her hands. They were steady. That, more than anything else, unsettled him. "You asked about endings," he said. "I don't avoid them. I distrust them." "Why?" "Because they pretend to resolve things that continue," he said. "They offer closure where there is only interruption." She nodded, slowly. "That's a good answer. You don't sound convinced." "I am," she said. "I'm just disappointed." "By what?" "By how familiar it is." The word hung between them. Familiar. He felt its weight settle. "You expected something else," he said. "I hoped for something else," she corrected. "Expectation is lazy." He laughed softly. "You're relentless." She shrugged. "I'm thorough." They sat this time, almost in unison. The room seemed to adjust around them, as if relieved. "Tell me something," she said. "When you teach, do you believe what you say?" "Most days," he answered. "On good days." "And on the others?" "I perform belief," he said. Convincingly. She studied him with renewed interest. "That's dangerous." "For whom?" "For everyone," she said. "Including you." He considered that. The rain had thinned again, retreating without ceremony. "You speak as if you know me," he said. "I know your work," she replied. "And I know how men like you age." "That's bleak." "It's generous," she said. "Most don't age at all. They just repeat." The accusation was gentle. That made it worse. "And you?" he asked. "Do you repeat?" She looked away, just briefly. "I revise." He felt the shift then. Not dramatic. Just precise. A door opening a fraction. "You didn't invite me here only as a reader," he said. "No," she agreed. "Or as a critic." "No." "Then as what?" She met his eyes. This time, there was no patience in her expression. No professional distance. "As a participant," she said. The word struck him low and slow. "In what?" he asked. "In the question you avoid," she replied. "What comes after relevance?" He leaned back, absorbing it. "That's an unfair request." "Yes," she said, "but a serious one." Silence followed, deeper now. Not empty. Charged. "You know," he said finally, "this is how trouble starts." She smiled, fully this time. It changed the room. "No," she said. "This is how it admits itself." A knock sounded in the hallway. Distant. Someone else's interruption. Neither of them moved. "Will you stay?" she asked. The question was quiet. Almost careless. It carried no demand. He looked at the door. Then at her. "I don't know how long," he said. "That's fine," she replied. "I'm not measuring." The knock came again, closer now. A reminder of schedules. Of other lives. He reached for his folder, then stopped. Left it where it was. "Yes," he said. The word surprised him with its ease. She nodded once, as if confirming a hypothesis. Outside, the rain stopped altogether. The silence that followed was not empty. It had weight, like a held breath that refused to release. She crossed the room and poured water into 2 glasses from the carafe on the desk. The sound was ordinary. That seemed important. She handed him one without ceremony. "You'll regret that," he said, meaning the yes, not the water. "Eventually," she replied. "But not tonight." He took a sip. The water was cool. Grounding. He wondered when he had last noticed such a thing. "You're very certain," he said. "I'm practiced," she answered. "There's a difference." He watched her sit on the edge of the desk instead of the chair. It was a small deviation. It felt deliberate. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said. "We talk without pretending it's provisional." "That's dangerous ground." "For you," she said. "I've already crossed it." He raised an eyebrow. When I invited you," she replied. "You just arrived late." He smiled at that, though it cost him something. "You enjoy asymmetry." "I tolerate it," she said. "I correct it when I can." They drank in silence for a moment. The room had softened. The edges were less severe. "You asked me about endings," he said. "I should return the favor. Go on. What do you believe happens when the work is finished?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she set her glass down and folded her hands. When she spoke, her voice was steadier than before. "People expect relief," she said. "They expect gratitude. Sometimes admiration. And mostly," she continued, "there is quiet. A kind that reveals what was deferred." "That sounds lonely." "It can be," she said. Unless someone is listening. The sentence landed between them with unmistakable intention. You're very direct, he said. I know, she replied. It saves time. Time for what? She looked at him, really looked, as if assessing whether the answer would be wasted. For the part where we stop explaining ourselves, she said. He felt the urge to stand again, resisted it. Instead, he leaned forward. You don't know what you're inviting, he said. I know exactly, she replied. That's why I'm calm. He laughed then, a low sound that surprised them both. You make this sound inevitable. She smiled faintly. No, I make it possible. Another knock echoed down the hall. Louder this time. Voices followed, indistinct but present. They'll be looking for you, she said. I know. You should go. Yes, he said. I should. Neither of them moved. Tomorrow, she said. Come by my office. We'll pretend this was professional. And the truth, he asked. She stood and moved closer, stopping just short of him. The truth, she said quietly, isn't finished yet. He nodded once. The acknowledgement felt binding. When he finally reached for the door, his hand lingered on the handle. He did not look back. Behind him, she watched with an expression he would later recognize as restraint. In the hallway, the lights buzzed softly. Life resumed its usual shape. But something had shifted. Not loudly, not visibly, just enough to ensure there would be a next time. He walked the length of the corridor as if it were longer than before. The carpet muffled his steps. Conversations leaked through half-closed doors. Familiar voices wrapped around familiar arguments. He nodded when necessary. He smiled when expected. None of it reached him. Outside, the campus had settled into a reflective quiet. The rain had rinsed the air clean. Leaves clung to the paths, dark and deliberate. He stood for a moment under the overhang, unsure which direction he meant to go. Leaving already? He turned. It was Markham from philosophy, collar turned up, eyes bright with the satisfaction of staying late. Just stepping out, he said. Storm passed, Markham replied. Pity. It made the evening feel important. He smiled politely. Some things don't need weather. Markham laughed and disappeared down the steps. The moment passed. He exhaled. As he walked, he replayed the conversation with an accuracy that surprised him. Not the arguments, the pauses, the way she had waited without pressure, the way waiting itself had done the work. He reached his car and stopped again, hand on the door. He did not open it. Instead, he leaned against the roof and looked up at the building. Lights glowed unevenly across the facade. Somewhere inside, she was still awake. He did not like the thought that she might be thinking of him. He liked it too much. At home, the house greeted him with practiced indifference. He left his coat on the chair. The clock in the kitchen ticked loudly, counting something he did not want measured. He poured himself a drink he did not finish. His study was exactly as he had left it. Books aligned, notes stacked. The order felt suddenly theatrical. He sat at the desk and opened a notebook, then closed it again. He heard her voice instead. Calm, precise, unwilling to soften for comfort. You write as if you don't believe in endings. He rubbed his eyes. It was late. He should sleep. Instead, he opened the notebook again and wrote a single sentence. Then he crossed it out. He tried another. That too failed. The problem was not language. It was consent. He closed the notebook and stood. The house creaked in small, familiar ways. He had lived here long enough to know its sounds. Tonight, they felt provisional. In the morning, he woke earlier than usual. Light filtered through the curtains with academic restraint. He lay still, listening. Nothing pressed. Nothing demanded. That worried him. At the university, the day unfolded with careful predictability. A lecture on narrative closure. A meeting about funding. A graduate student apologizing for something unnecessary. Professor. Yes, he said too quickly. You're distracted, she said, smiling. He nodded. It happens. She seemed reassured. He was not. By mid-morning, he found himself outside her building without having decided to go there. The door opened easily. The stairs felt narrower going up. Her nameplate was understated. He appreciated that. He knocked once. Then again. Come in, she said. Her office was brighter than the guest house room. Books lined the walls, not densely but intentionally. A window overlooked a stand of trees, their leaves still wet. You came, she said. You asked me to, he replied. I suggested, she corrected. You decided. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a finality he did not comment on. Coffee, she asked. Yes, he said. Please. She poured without asking how he took it. He noticed. He liked it. They sat, this time across a desk that offered no neutrality. Papers lay between them, but neither touched them. So, she said, "Did you sleep?" "Poorly," he answered. She nodded. "Good." He laughed softly. "You're consistent." "I try to be," she replied. He studied her face in the daylight. It revealed nothing new. It revealed everything. "You weren't finished," she said. "No," he agreed. "I still am not." "That's acceptable," she said. "For now." He leaned forward. "What happens if we finish this?" She held his gaze. "Then we'll know what it cost." Outside, a breeze moved through the trees. Leaves shifted. The sound was subtle, persistent. Neither of them spoke. The day waited. She reached for a folder on the corner of her desk and slid it toward him. The gesture was unremarkable. It carried intent. "Read this," she said. He did not open it. "What is it?" "Something unfinished," she replied. "By someone who believed he was done." "That's cruel." "Yes," she said, "but instructive." He opened the folder. The pages were marked, not heavily, but decisively. Margins spoke in a careful hand. He recognized the discipline immediately. "You've been working on this for a while," he said. "I've been waiting," she corrected. "There's a difference." "For me." "For the right reader," she said. "I hoped it might be you." The words unsettled him more than praise would have. He turned a page, then another, without reading. The content could wait. "You're inviting trouble," he said. She smiled. "You keep saying that. And you keep agreeing." "No," she said. "I keep accepting." A knock interrupted them. This time, it was unmistakably close. "Professor Hale?" A voice called. "Are you free?" She glanced at him, just long enough to acknowledge the complication. "Give me a moment," she said. Footsteps retreated. The hallway resumed its life. "You should go," she said, not unkindly. "I know," he replied. "You don't have to decide anything today." He stood, the folder still open in his hands. "I already have." She raised an eyebrow. "Have you?" "Yes," he said. "I've decided not to pretend this is incidental." Her expression softened. Not relief. Recognition. "That's all I needed," she said. He closed the folder carefully and placed it back on the desk. He wanted to say something that would last. He said nothing instead. At the door, he paused. "You're dangerous," he said. She smiled, tired this time. "So are you. That's why this works." He left without looking back. He would regret that later. In the hallway, students passed him, unaware. The building hummed with purpose. He moved through it like a man carrying a secret he had not yet earned. Outside, the trees whispered again. Not urgently, patiently. He understood then that whatever had begun between them was not an interruption. It was a continuation he had postponed too long. And for the first time in years, the thought did not frighten him. It steadied him. He walked on, already listening for the next sentence. That afternoon, the hours arranged themselves without consulting him. He lectured. He listened. He nodded at the appropriate intervals. Words moved through him as they always had, practiced and reliable. Beneath them, something else kept time. At 4:30, his phone vibrated. He did not look at it immediately. When he did, there was no message. Just a missed call. No name attached. He knew. At home again, the house seemed less certain of itself. Light slanted through the windows at an angle that felt interrogative. He loosened his tie and left it on the kitchen counter, where it did not belong. The clock ticked. He let it. He opened the folder she had given him and read for real this time. The prose was spare, confident, unforgiving. It refused sentiment and still made room for feeling. He recognized the voice at once, though he had never heard it before. He read slowly, not critically. That surprised him. There were places where the argument faltered, not from weakness, but from restraint. She had stopped just short of something. He saw where. He understood why. It was the same place he stopped in his own work. He closed the folder as evening settled. Outside, a single light flickered on across the street. Someone else's domestic certainty. He poured himself another drink and forgot to touch it. When the phone rang this time, he answered without checking. "Yes," he said. "I wasn't sure you would," she replied. "I was," he said. "I just needed to confirm." There was a pause. He imagined her considering how much to say. "Did you read it?" she asked. "I did," he replied. Carefully. And you stopped too soon," he said. She exhaled, audible and unguarded. "I wondered if you'd notice." "You wanted me to," he said. "Yes," she admitted. "But I didn't know if you would." He leaned against the counter. The glass chilled his palm. You're afraid of the last turn, he said. I'm wary of it, she corrected. There's a difference. Of course, he said. I should have known. They smiled into the line, both aware of the symmetry. Come over, she said. He did not hesitate. Now. If you want, she replied. I do. He grabbed his coat, left the folder on the table where it could be seen. I'll be there, he said. She did not say goodbye. Neither did he. The drive was brief. He noticed every red light, every pedestrian. The city seemed intent on reminding him that other lives continued without consequence. Her building was quieter than he expected. Older. The kind of place that had outlasted several explanations. He climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator. She opened the door before he knocked. You came quickly, she said. I didn't want to reconsider, he replied. Good, she said. I hate delays masquerading as thought. Inside, her apartment was spare but warm. Books again. Lamps instead of overhead light. A window cracked open to the night. She took his coat, hung it carefully. The intimacy of the gesture settled between them. You should sit, she said. He did not. If I sit, I might behave. She smiled. That would be a loss. They stood there, close enough now that the air between them felt intentional. You know, she said, this is the part people dramatize. And you? He asked. I prefer accuracy, she replied. He nodded. Then let me be accurate. She waited. I'm afraid, he said. She did not move. Of me. Of myself, he said. In your presence. Her expression changed. Not triumph. Not satisfaction. Something like care. That, she said softly, is exactly the point. She reached for his hand. Not urgently. Not tentatively. Simply as if it belonged there. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, a door closed. The world kept its distance. Inside, the sentence they had both been avoiding finally began. He let his hand rest in hers without closing his fingers. The restraint mattered. It told the truth faster than any declaration could. You don't rush, she said. I've rushed before, he replied. I'm trying to learn. She nodded, as if that were sufficient evidence of good faith. She released his hand and stepped back, giving him space that felt newly deliberate. Sit, she said again. This time he did. She moved to the kitchen and poured wine into 2 glasses. Red. He noticed she did not ask his preference. He noticed he did not mind. Tell me, she said, handing him the glass, what you crossed out last night. He blinked. You assume I wrote. I assume you couldn't help it, she replied. He smiled. A sentence about permanence. It was dishonest. In what way? It pretended certainty, he said. I don't have that. She sat across from him, one leg tucked beneath her. Certainty is overrated. So I'm told. I'm serious, she said. Certainty ends conversations. I'm more interested in stamina. He considered that. You test people. I listen to them, she corrected. Tests are impersonal. They drank. The wine was good. That mattered less than the way the evening had slowed around it. You didn't answer my question earlier, she said. Which one? What happens when the work is finished, she said. For you. He looked at his glass. The surface reflected a distorted version of his face. When the work ends, he said slowly, I discover what I was avoiding. And what is that? She asked. He met her eyes. The fact that someone else might continue the thought. She did not respond immediately. When she did, her voice was steady. That's not avoidance, she said. That's fear of collaboration. Yes, he said. Which is worse? She smiled faintly. Only if you mistake collaboration for loss. He leaned back. You make this sound pedagogical. It is, she said. Just not in the way we're used to. The room held them gently. No urgency. No demand. That, too, felt instructive. Stay, she said. It was not a request. It was an opening. For how long, he asked. As long as the conversation remains honest, she replied. He nodded. That's a risk. Yes, she agreed. But a worthy one. Later, they would remember this moment inaccurately. They would each revise it in private, adjusting emphasis, altering tone. For now, it remained untouched. He set his glass down. She mirrored the movement without looking at him. You know, he said, we will disappoint each other. Of course, she replied. Disappointment is evidence of expectation. And you're comfortable with that? I'm tired of avoiding it, she said. He stood and crossed the small distance between them. Not to close it, just to acknowledge it. I don't know where this leads, he said. She looked up at him, calm and unflinching. Neither do I. The admission felt like a vow. Outside, The city continued its indifferent breathing. Inside, two careful people allowed the future to remain unscripted. They did not touch again that night. Not yet. But when he finally lay awake beside her, listening to the unfamiliar cadence of another life nearby, he understood that something irrevocable had already occurred. Not passion, not romance. Permission. Morning entered the room without apology. Pale light pressed against the curtains, insisting on presence rather than warmth. He woke before she did and stayed still, careful not to disturb the fragile agreement of sleep. She lay on her side, facing away from him. One hand rested near her face, relaxed, unguarded. He noticed how rarely he had seen anyone like this in years. Not idealized, not performing, simply present. He did not touch her. The restraint felt earned. "You're thinking too loudly," she said, eyes still closed. He smiled. "I apologize." "Don't," she replied. "It's reassuring." He shifted slightly, enough to signal wakefulness without intrusion. "About what?" "That you didn't disappear," she said. "That you stayed with the thought." He considered that. "I wasn't sure staying was allowed." She opened her eyes then and turned toward him. Her expression was neutral, observant. "It's allowed," she said. "It's not required." "That's worse," he said. "Yes," she agreed, "but more honest." They lay there for a moment, listening to the building come awake. A door closed somewhere. Water ran through pipes with institutional patience. "Coffee?" she asked. "Please," he said. She rose without ceremony and pulled on a shirt that was not his. He appreciated that too. The kitchen sounds followed, familiar and intimate at once. He sat up and looked around the room in daylight. Books again. Margins visible now. A life arranged not for display, but for use. She returned with 2 mugs and handed him one. Their fingers brushed, briefly. Neither remarked on it. "You'll have to leave soon," she said. "I know. You don't have to rush." "I won't." They drank quietly. The coffee was strong. It anchored him. "What happens now?" he asked. She leaned back against the counter. "Now we see what survives daylight." "That sounds ominous." "It's practical," she said. "Night is generous. Morning is precise." He nodded. "I respect precision." "I know," she said. "That's why this interested me." He set his mug down. "This?" She smiled slightly. "You." The word landed without flourish. It did not need one. "You're aware," he said, "that this complicates things." "Yes," she replied. "And simplifies others." "Which ones?" She considered. "Intent. Attention. Honesty." He laughed softly. "You make it sound manageable." "It is," she said. "If we don't lie." He stood and moved closer, stopping short of contact. "And if we do?" She met his gaze. "Then we'll know immediately." He reached for his coat. The movement felt symbolic, though neither acknowledged it. "I'll see you," he said. "Yes," she replied. "You will." At the door, he paused. "This isn't a detour." She smiled, not unkindly. "No, it's a rereading." He left then, carrying the morning with him. On the street, the campus had resumed its rhythms. Students hurried. Faculty lingered. The future pretended to be ordinary. He walked through it with a new attentiveness, aware that something had shifted not in circumstance, but in posture. He was no longer bracing against what came next. He was listening for it. He returned to his office, the day unfolding with mechanical predictability, yet nothing felt ordinary. The clock ticked as it always did, students filtered in and out, papers shuffled, and yet he moved through it like a man awake for the first time in years. Every detail seemed sharper. The way sunlight caught the dust motes in the air, the soft scrape of chalk on blackboard, the muffled laughter down the hall. He sat at his desk and opened his notebook. Pen in hand, he paused. Words that usually came easily were suddenly fragile. He wrote a single line. "She lets things stay unfinished." He underlined it twice, not because it was a sentence of literary merit, but because it carried the weight of truth. A knock on the door made him start. It was a graduate student, timid, apologetic, carrying a sheaf of papers. He smiled, automatically, but his mind remained elsewhere. "Professor Hale?" the student said. "Hi. I wanted to ask about your lecture from yesterday." "Yes," he said. "Come in." As the student spoke, he listened, but not fully. His mind traced back to her apartment, to the quiet assertion of her presence, to the honesty of her smile, to the way she had made space for something unnamed but entirely tangible. He realized he could recall her gestures with more clarity than the notes he had taken in class that morning. When the student left, he sat back and exhaled. He realized he had been holding his breath without knowing it. The office seemed quieter. The sun had shifted. The room was suddenly generous in a way it had never been. He found himself walking the campus paths later, as if hoping to stumble upon the ordinary and find it altered. Trees stood in early bloom, their leaves pale green against the sky. Students hurried past, talking about assignments and exams, completely unaware of the undercurrent of change flowing through him. He stopped by the fountain, the water moving without effort, reflecting sunlight. It occurred to him that life often continued without consulting anyone. Yet here he was, feeling every drop, every ripple, as though the world itself had decided to slow down for him. He reached into his coat pocket and found her note, left folded neatly in the folder she had given him. He unfolded it carefully, as if touching it too roughly might break its purpose. The words were minimal, precise. The rest waits for your attention. He smiled faintly. Evenings at home were quiet. He brewed tea, ate lightly, but his thoughts always returned to her. Not lust, not desire exactly, something quieter, more insistent. A curiosity, a reckoning. He found himself imagining her in different light, imagining what would happen if he crossed a line, then imagining what it would mean if he didn't. That night, he wrote again. Not lecture notes, not critiques. He wrote to understand the rhythm she had imposed on him without a single instruction. His sentences were fragmented, circling around ideas he could not finish, but he did not mind. The incompletion was part of the point. Sleep came late and came uneasy. When he finally lay down, he realized that absence had weight. Not just her absence, but the absence of pretense, the absence of familiar defenses. He had nothing to hold on to except the recognition that he was awake in a way he hadn't been for decades. Morning arrived. Pale light pressed through the curtains. The air smelled of wet stone and frost. He dressed slowly, deliberately. Something in him had shifted so quietly that it might have gone unnoticed if he were anyone else. But he was not. He walked out again, headed for her building without thinking. Perhaps it was habit. Perhaps it was inevitability. He did not need to knock this time. She opened the door before he could. I wondered if you would come, she said. Her tone was neither accusatory nor welcoming, simply factual. I didn't think twice, he said. She looked him over carefully. That's good, she said. You've started listening to yourself. He followed her inside, aware that each step was a promise, though neither had named it. The door closed behind him with soft authority. Outside, life continued. Inside, they began again, quietly, deliberately, as if rehearsing for a future neither could yet name. He realized, with a certainty that was new and frightening, that the story had truly begun. She led him to a small sitting area near the window. Morning light filtered softly, painting the bookshelves in pale gold. Sit, she said. He did, though the chair felt too far, too formal. She took the seat opposite him. Between them, nothing, no desk, no papers, only space. The emptiness made conversation sharper, unavoidable. You read the folder? She asked. Yes, he said, carefully. And her voice was calm, but the word lingered like a challenge. You stopped yourself, he said. On purpose. She nodded. I wanted to see if someone else would pick up where I left off. He raised an eyebrow. And you did, she said, with a faint smile. Though I think you avoided noticing it. I noticed, he said. I just wasn't ready to admit it. Her eyes held his. Not ready to admit what? That you were teaching me, he said. Not through lectures. Not through argument. But through arrangement. Arrangement, she repeated, intrigued. The way you let words pause, he said. The way you make space for them to matter. For me to matter. She studied him silently, as though weighing the truth of that statement. Dangerous observation, she said finally. It's accurate, he replied. Another pause. Neither moved. The silence wasn't empty. It was intentional, magnetic. Do you enjoy this? She asked. Yes, he said. More than I probably should. And yet, she pressed. And yet, he said, I fear what happens when it stops being a conversation. She leaned forward slightly. What happens then? I don't know, he admitted. And that's terrifying. Her smile was slow, deliberate. You're aware, she said. That's precisely why it's worth pursuing. He laughed softly, a low sound that surprised even him. I know. I just didn't think I'd say yes so quickly. You mean yes to the conversation, or yes to noticing me? Both, he said without hesitation. A faint tension settled in the air. Neither spoke for a moment, but the quiet was heavy with unspoken thoughts. You're dangerously honest, she said, finally breaking the silence. And you're unforgivingly patient, he replied. Which is worse? She tilted her head, considering. Patience is a test. Honesty is a risk. And we're already playing both. I like the game, he said, though I fear the rules. Rules are for safety, she said. Safety is irrelevant here. They both smiled, quietly acknowledging the truth in that. The rain began again outside, faint at first, then more insistent. The sound tapped against the glass in a rhythm that felt like accompaniment rather than interruption. He looked at her, suddenly aware of how close she was, how present. Do you ever wonder if we're reckless? All the time, she said. And all the time I don't care. He shifted slightly in his chair, feeling the gravity between them, the weight of everything they weren't yet saying. You think too much, she said. And I think just enough. He smiled, then leaned forward. Then teach me how not to think, just for a moment. Her expression softened, almost imperceptibly. That's my favorite lesson. The door was closed. The rain continued. Time had slowed. And for the first time in years, he realized he was exactly where he was meant to be. He leaned back, pretending to examine the rain, though his attention was on her. You're smiling, she said. I'm not, he lied poorly. You are, she corrected. It's a good smile. Not cautious. Not defensive. Honest. He exhaled. You notice everything. Not everything, she said. Just what matters. He studied her, trying to decipher whether the compliment was a trap, or perhaps a test. She noticed. You're thinking, she said. Always, he admitted. But now I'm wondering if thinking too much is the point. Then stop thinking, she challenged. Just for a moment. He laughed softly, but it carried weight. And if I can't, then you're learning, she replied. Her tone was gentle, yet firm. That's the lesson. He reached for the edge of the desk, bracing himself, though he didn't know for what. I'm aware of you, he said finally. Her breath caught slightly. Not enough for him to notice without attention, but enough to unsettle him. I'm aware of you too, she said, quieter this time. And I've been aware longer than I should admit. The admission hung between them like suspended glass. Fragile. Sharp. He wanted to break it with words, but found none adequate. He moved slightly closer, testing the space between them. She didn't flinch. She merely adjusted her position to face him more directly. The movement was minimal, deliberate, and it felt like consent. The way you listen, he said, it's precise. Almost surgical. And you, she said, are too accustomed to precision. You analyze when you should feel. He smiled, not entirely in jest. Perhaps I need you to teach me both. You'll have to decide which lesson matters more, she said. Intellect or everything else. He shifted again, closer this time. The chairs between them became less a barrier, more a suggestion. I can't decide yet, he admitted. And I don't think I want to. Her gaze softened. Good. Then don't. Silence fell, heavy but not oppressive. The only sound was the rain, growing stronger. Each tap against the window punctuated the space between them, echoing the tension that neither dared fully name. I want to, he said, finally. But I don't know how. How what? She asked, leaning slightly forward, her voice low. To close the distance without losing everything we've found in it. Her lips quirked into a half smile. You mean the difference between thought and action? Yes, he whispered. Exactly that. She leaned back slightly, contemplating him. Then start with honesty, she said. Not words. Feelings. What you risk. He exhaled. I risk. He trailed off, unsure how to name it without breaking the fragile calm between them. Say it anyway, she urged. I risk. His hand hovered over the edge of hers. Losing control. Her fingers twitched subtly. Good, she said. That's the right answer. He let the hand drop closer. Not yet touching, just brushing the air between them. The distance was electric, charged by intention, desire, and restraint. Closer, she whispered. He leaned forward slowly. She remained still, allowing, inviting, but not demanding. Their faces were inches apart. Breath mingled without acknowledgement. Not too fast, she murmured. I don't want to ruin it, he said. Then don't, she replied. Just be present. They held the space like that, measured, delicate, until the room felt smaller than it had before. Outside, the storm pressed against the glass, softer now, steady. Inside, the tension between them became its own force, intimate, dangerous, and alive. And then, finally, he let his hand brush hers. Not a grasp, not a claim, simply contact. The electricity was immediate, undeniable. She did not pull away. Instead, her hand shifted slightly to meet his. Their fingers intertwined with quiet deliberation. The rain drummed a gentle rhythm against the window. Time suspended itself. Words were unnecessary. Every glance, every breath, every small motion carried the weight of all they had avoided saying, and all they would never fully articulate. "You're patient," he whispered. "I told you," she said. "Patience is a test." He smiled, leaning closer, allowing the space between them to collapse just enough to acknowledge what had begun, without naming it. The storm outside continued, soft but insistent, matching the slow, deliberate storm that had settled between them. And they remained there, hand in hand, listening to the quiet violence of their own hearts.